We're going to begin here with a difficult debate: free speech versus public safety. The two are at odds right now in a local case that's getting national attention after a SUNY Fredonia professor's controversial comments about pedophilia. So it's been about a year and a half now since Professor Stephen Keshnar appeared on a podcast, and he questioned whether adult-child sex is always inherently wrong. Court filings show that university leaders wanted to keep him off campus, worried about potential disruption if he were allowed to return. There were lots of threats. Well, the Buffalo News reports that lawyers for Keshnar pressed a federal judge for a preliminary injunction to essentially force the university to let him come back to work. His team argues that the university has violated his First Amendment rights. Joining us live tonight to help us better understand this is attorney Peter Pullano. He is managing partner with Tully Rinckey out of the Rochester office. Sir, it's great to have you back on the show. We talked a while back, and this is one that we're all trying to understand the legal ramifications here. Not so much debating the professor's comments. People have very strong feelings about what he said, but this is really about, can he come back on campus? Are his abilities to exercise his free speech at play here, or does the university have a point in saying it's too dangerous to bring him back? How do you see those two at odds in this case?
First and foremost, it is important to remember that unseemly speech can still be constitutionally protected speech, and that's exactly what we've got here. We don't have to have a conversation about the content of the professor's speech. He is free to say what he wants to say within limits, and what he said was within those limits. The university is now pointing to threats of violence, which is curious, because threats of violence would, of course, be less constitutionally protected than what the professor had to say. And rather than trying to police those threats, the university seems to be almost hopping on board and saying, well, we've got these threats out here, we can't let them on campus. I think the burden is going to be on the university at this point to show that these are real threats and not just like somebody yelling, kill the umpire, which also would be constitutionally protected. So long as they're just words, I think there is a constitutional First Amendment right to say them, to express them, and the professor, I think, has stayed within his rights.
Yeah, even if the vast majority of people may find his comments abhorrent, still protected speech. Let me ask you though, as a layperson, not an attorney, I know anytime we talk about trying to get a preliminary injunction, that it's a higher bar, right? But do you see the professor and his attorneys being able to meet that so that the judge would step in now and sort of force this change?
That's going to be an interesting battle, because obviously, they're looking to force the university, but the university is forcing the professor at this point. And it's almost going to be a case of one injunction versus another. And so I don't know where the judge will come out on this one, specifically with the injunction. That is a higher burden. But the case is still going to be heard, I think, and the issues are still going to be there. So, a judge may be well served just to let's put it all on the table right now and see what we've got here.
And then finally, how will a case sort of like this play out in the coming, weeks, months, years, maybe? Sometimes it takes a long time, right?
I think this one could take a long time. You do have, as we pointed out, speech that could shock the conscience. Whichever party gets some sort of a ruling in the initial court, the other party will not be satisfied. This will go up, and it's tempting enough even that it could go up to the Supreme Court. That's a hard thing to say so early on in litigation. But it's certainly salacious enough and interesting enough nationwide that we could end up there.
Yeah, something we'll be monitoring for sure as this case continues. Attorney Peter Pullano, managing partner with Tully Rinckey, thanks so much for coming back on the show and helping us understand this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, as always.